Welcome back to Show Me the Nuggets. I'm Eduardo Trinidad, the show's producer. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're giving you part 2 of Joe's interview with Kasim Aslam. In this episode, along with part 1 from last week, we get a glimpse of Kasim's entrepreneurial journey. Kasim gives us the details of how niching down catapulted his agency to success, as well as some highly actionable takeaways for agencies who are looking to niche down and scale to 7 figures. Here we go.
Welcome to Show Me the Nuggets, where each week Joe chats with world-class entrepreneurs to find out the key principles, strategies, and processes that lie behind their outstanding achievements. Now, your host, the no-bullshit serial entrepreneur, Joe Troyer.
I got a little quote here from Eduardo, our podcast producer. As you know, we do our research, and Eduardo said that he heard you say in one of our interviews or one of your interviews that when it comes to driving traffic, you're not really that much better than everybody else and that you just cheat and pick the winning horse. So first off, I love the honesty in that statement. I gotta pull that out and comment on that. I absolutely love that you just threw yourself under the bus. I love the honesty in the statement, but I'm really curious, what the heck do you mean by that statement?
I feel like, so we're definitely in the top 10 percentile as far as proficiency is concerned, right? Like there's no question that we've got the data to prove it. Once you're there though, all things are pretty much equal, right? Like a good PPC manager is a good PPC. I don't have any buttons other people don't have. You know, like we're all, and it's not like I have access to information people don't have. Like it's all pretty much out in the open. So it's an even playing field. The thing to do there is to make sure that the campaigns that you run have a higher likelihood of success. The first thing we do, I've got 3 salespeople on staff. The very first thing I do is what we call a viability study. So you call Solutions 8 and you're like, hey, I want to give you money. We're going to say, no, let's walk through this process. Tell me about your numbers. What are your margins? What's your lifetime value of a customer? Are you in a consumable space? Is there any recurring revenue? Let's look at what we think the competition is spending, or what your competitive market looks like, et cetera, et cetera. And if we get to the end of that and it doesn't look like we're going to be successful, we don't take you as a client. And it's not us being petulant. Here's the truth. And everybody especially in the paid space, but in the agency space probably knows this. We're not profitable in the first 90 days. That first 90 days is a mad sprint of trying to make this campaign work. And statistically, Google's own statistic is 50% of all Google Ads campaigns fail in the first 90 days. So if I took on everybody, half of my clients wouldn't stay. I can't afford to do that. Now it's, I'm losing money. So we have to take the clients that we know are going to be successful. And the model of vetting their business has proven not only to be really profitable for us, but the customers love the honesty. Like if I hop on with you and I'm like, hey man, you don't have the margins to support paid traffic. Like you can't, it's incalculable the number of people that have gone, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Like, thank you for, and then they get to go beat that up, like they get to go figure out a different supplier, or figure out how they can improve their process, or figure out an ascension model, or, turn it into a subscription or consumable. And then they come back. So there's my favorite thought leader in the whole world is a guy named Jordan Peterson. He's a clinical psychologist out of Toronto. And he says that, one, truth is the most important thing out of all human construct. And 2, as long as you tell the truth, whatever happens afterwards is the ideal outcome, regardless of whether or not you like it in the moment. And I have found that to be true in our business. We're just hyper honest with our customers, manage expectations really well. And on the other end of it, we end up with these really high performing campaigns. So yeah, how was that for an answer, Joe? I hope I didn't hop on a soapbox too heavily. You can edit out whatever there was.
No, I love it. And I love Jordan Peterson too. We might have to edit that out though. It's a little controversial. So yeah, no, just kidding.
Or JP.
No, I love that mindset. I feel like so many agencies are starved for revenue, or that's how they act, even if they're not really starved, that they'll take on any client, even if they know that they're going to turn out the other side in 90 days, even though they know the statement that you just said is completely true, which is they're not going to be profitable in the first 90 days either, right? Which is kind of an asinine statement, because it's like, I'm accepting the money I know I'm not going to get to keep and I'm not going to make any profit from. It's like, then what? Why are you in business? That foresight, most people in the agency space, I don't feel like have for some reason.
Well, I did. I mean, Joe, these are hard-earned lessons. Here's the thing, dude, is I didn't wake up and, figure all this out. I failed over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm super hard-headed, but like a petulant child who keeps putting his hand on the stove, I slowly learned like, hey, this hurts. So, I made those mistakes so many times. And I remember papering up clients. I remember sending DocuSigns to people and just knowing this is horrible. I'm going to hate this. They're not a right fit. They're going to be a pain in the hindquarters. I shouldn't be doing this. And I just gotten better at kind of listening to that, and so it's a hard-earned lesson, but hopefully somebody out there can just learn from my mistake and not have to go through the crucible themselves. And once you get there, it's crazy too. This is, talking about coming from acting. I was watching this documentary called The Guy from That Thing, and they interview all these working actors that you don't know their name, but you've seen them everywhere. And one of the things that a bunch of them said was, you didn't start really getting gigs until you started turning gigs down. And I found that to be true in my acting world now. I see that to be true in the agency world. Like, we didn't really start cooking with oil. Like, clients didn't really start seeking us out until we started turning clients down. And then all of a sudden we were elevated from, service provider begging for business to like strategic consultant. Oh, those guys they're good. They'll tell you, they'll shoot you straight. They'll be on. Dude, I've got Google reviews right now from people I've never worked with. Like, hopped on a sales call with these guys. They let us know what was wrong with our business and told us that they wouldn't take our money. So I think it's a good place to be, and everybody can do it. It doesn't matter what service you're offering. You can tell somebody, before you go build their website, hey, I think that this is a flawed model for these reasons. I'd like you to make these improvements before I were to take you on as a customer.
Oh man, I love that. I'm really interested, kind of a follow-up on that. I'm interested in your perspective because I know you also do a bunch of white label like we do. And I think that provides a very unique perspective into the industry with working with so many agencies and seeing how they run, how they operate, and the commonalities, both good and bad. I'm really curious, like, what do you think as you look at your best white label partners and referral partners? What are the top 3 or 4 things that you see in terms of commonalities amongst those guys?
Well, that's such a good question. The very first one is expectation management. They manage expectations with their clients the way that we do, so we're aligned there. Because I do have some white label partners that promise the moon. I've one that promises a positive ROAS, or he'll give you your money back. And I was just like, dude, I'm not gonna do that. Like, you need to. That's impossible. And he's very bullish, and he only takes on a very niche type of customer. And so he goes, I'm gonna eat this. It's out of my pocket. But even now, in my mind, I hope he never hears this. But in my mind, I'm like, there's no way this lasts. So expectation management is really big. The next one is they let us do our thing. Like, I've got some white label partners that think they know PPC, and I'll get phone calls, or my client managers will get phone calls like, why aren't we showing up for this key phrase? And it's like, because you're out of budget, dude. It's 6 p.m. Like, you ran out of budget at noon. You don't know the marketing mechanism. I don't mind being challenged at all. I think that's perfectly fair. But you do have some people that like decide that, oh, I hired you for this job, and now I'm going to sit next to you and watch you do it and tell you how it should be done. And we jettison those pretty quickly, or just have the come to Jesus talk, and they end up turning into good partners. But people that don't mind stepping back and letting us do the job, those are the ones that are most successful. And usually it's an agency that's really good at something else. It's a web dev agency or an SEO agency that wants to run PPC. Maybe they've tried to do it in-house, realized they couldn't, but they want to keep it in the fold, and they actually don't care about it as much. Like, they don't respect the offering, which is to our benefit, because it means that they're not going to try to overinsert themselves.
No, I love that. I think that's definitely a key characteristic, that last one, of some of our most successful partners as well. They specialize somewhere else and need to add Google Ads, or their customers want Google Ads and they want to offer full service to some regard. And that gives them some capabilities by working with white label. So awesome, man. I think that those criteria are really good. Those common traits, I would agree with all of those, actually. So being a Google Ads agency, I'm curious, like, obviously Google is always making changes. Facebook is always making changes in the marketplace. Like, if there's one thing that's for certain in marketing, it is always changing and changing, fast. I'm curious, over the last 12 to 18 months, what do you think have been the biggest changes that have maybe flown under the radar that people maybe haven't given credit to or thought to? What are kind of some of the aha moments for you personally over the last 12 or 18 months?
Google rolled out or announced FloC, which, if you're listening and you haven't heard, it's Federated Learning of Cohorts, FLOC, FloC. it aligns with everybody's new obsession with privacy, which, by the way, actually hurts. It hurts the overarching endeavor to achieve true levels of privacy, because all that's happening now is these big, techno giants they're building up massive walls that you can't see behind. And so you're not protecting your privacy from them. You're just protecting, in some instances, the ability for certain advertisers to use some of that information. But the fact that we're not all farmers with pitchforks and torches out there protesting FloC from a marketing perspective, it's unreal to me that people still haven't been up in arms. Google's removing the one-to-one association an advertiser has with the website visitor and putting these visitors into FloCs. And the FloCs are groups of thousands of people. And then instead of saying, hey, Joe came to your website, looked at these pages, looked at this product, put this in a shopping cart and bounced. Google says, hey, somebody from this FloC may have come to your site in this time range. They might have done these things and taken a few of these actions. And then they see it in noise. So they actually lie to you. The problem with it, though, is the FloCs are relatively easy to reverse engineer, especially if you're using fingerprinting, which is impossible for Google to stop right now. And so if somebody can identify what FloC you're in, they now know more about you than if you were just a visitor that came to their website, which is nuts. So Google's actually giving up more information, and Facebook's worse. Google has 70 million demographic and psychographic profiling factors. Facebook has 55,000. So Google told a woman she was pregnant before she knew in April of 2015. It's my favorite case study to cite. 6 years ago, dude, based on our communication and search patterns, Google knew she was pregnant before she knew she was pregnant. And the information they have available and accessible is unfreaking believable. And the way that they're going about bundling people in these weird human Venn diagrams and then exposing those Venn diagrams to everybody based on these FloC IDs, I don't see a positive to it for anybody but Google, because they've been able to, isolate and encapsulate. And the fact that they're talking about how they're now a privacy first company, I think is freaking hysterical, because they're the exact opposite. That's why you get all this stuff for free. If you get anything for free, you're the product, right? Like Gmail's free because they read all your emails. Google Drive is free because they're reading all your documents. Google Photos is free. They know what my children look like. It's just, it's unreal. So I think FloC is a massive change. I think the move towards automation is really interesting. Broad match with smart bidding is actually working now, which is freaking shocking. So I don't think Google's an evil company. I don't think that they're the devil or anything. Actually, in a lot of ways, I think they perform with high amounts of integrity, but they've been forced into this position. They're terrified of an antitrust suit. They don't want the congressional hearing. So the way that they're responding to it, it's going to be really interesting to watch. And a lot of things, FloC really doesn't roll out entirely, I think, until mid 2022. So we're not going to see all the impacts right away. But dynamic remarketing, I don't know how they're going to keep that if you don't have, one-to-one association with a user. There's so many things that are about to be on the chopping block. And what sucks about it, man, and I have levels of survivor's guilt because of it, the agencies win, because you need me more than ever. The people that lose are the individual advertisers, especially the small ones, the ones that can't afford to spend into the ecosystem and make up for the data they're losing. So small businesses are going to suffer, and that's where my heart is for small businesses. So, there will always be alternatives. New things will roll around. We'll figure out the strategies to contend with it. But where things are going, this is the biggest change in my marketing life. I've been doing this for 15 years. This is the biggest shift. It's the very first time we've ever gone backwards in our ability to collect data. And so I think that the new emphasis, until we figure something else out, is just going to be on creative. I think the whole world, we're all data-driven marketers, and the whole world's going to shift back to creative marketers now. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch.
Dude, that's a super interesting perspective. You guys heard it here first. FloC, go look into it, start following it, and super excited for that. Great insight, man. Definitely appreciate your perspective. Let's transition a little bit and let's talk about your book, man. What's your book called? How'd the book come together?
It's called The 7 Critical Principles of Effective Digital Marketing. And I wrote it because I wanted to speak, because I have a weird egotistical need to be on stage. And if you want to get on the right stages, everybody wants to know that you wrote a book. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll write a book. And I ended up really falling in love with the process. I wake up every morning at 4 a.m. super early. And I would wake up and I'd write 1,000 words. And I learned more writing than I've, done taking any course or any of those things. It was a really awesome experience. And I poured my heart and soul into the book too. A lot of people write a book to write a book. I set out that way, but I ended up writing something that I'm really proud of. And it's what I tried to do is find, because you said it earlier, Joe, and it was a brilliant observation. The only constant in marketing is change. So the question, the underlying thesis of my book is, well, what are the facets of marketing that don't change? What are the things that, will hopefully be here forever? And I focused on just the principles of marketing. The first and most important being empathy. Empathy is akin to love, and people don't like the word love because it conjures up really weird, like, woo, hippies with crystals and Sedona type of whatever. But I believe very strongly that you can't market to somebody that you don't love. And love, again, to quote Jordan Peterson says that love is just the desire that all things flourish. So, if I say that I love somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean that I want to go take windy walks with them. It just means that I want their life to be better. And if you market to somebody and you don't want their life to be better, you don't deserve their business, A. B, you're probably not going to get it. And so my book is just kind of like it's kind of an ongoing examination of some of those principles. Empathy being the first one. The second principle is give first, give last, give more. And you notice the really good marketers, you talking about spending $4,000 to acquire a customer. That means you get to give. And I really love that paradigm. I love giving to earn business. So that's it's old now. It's 2017, which in digital marketing years is like 50 years old. But it's cool because it was meant to be written as an evergreen piece. So now I get to see whether or not it stands the test of time.
That's awesome, man. If people are interested, where can they pick the book up?
Amazon is probably the easiest place. There's other like little niche booksellers that carry it, but I think Amazon's the fastest and simplest.
Cool, man. I love that. I wrote down your quote. You can't market to people that you don't love, man. So true. Like if you don't care, it's going to shine through everywhere. In every dealing with the customer, every dealing with the prospect, in fulfillment, in the product, absolutely everywhere. So nice little nugget there for sure. We'll make sure to put in the show notes. Man, this has been awesome. I want to be super respectful of your time. I want to ask you one more question just to wrap things up. Instead of asking you to recommend 3 books, which I feel like every podcast does, like, hey, Kasim, what are your favorite 3 books? I always ask what I think is a little bit more of an insightful question. And I ask, what's the one book that's made the biggest impact on the way that you do business or the way that your business looks today?
7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. You may notice that I stole his
Perfect.
book.
Why? Yeah, why?
I don't think there's another book that I've read that's as chock full of value, and it's absolutely timeless from a principle perspective. And I think he identified the biggest problem with 20th and now 21st century business paradigm, which is the difference between the personality ethic and the character ethic. And I won't dive into it now, but in the book, he talks about how humanity used to have an emphasis on a person's character. And then somewhere at the turn of the 20th century, the emphasis was now placed on personality. And it's a flawed model. And Covey wants to return to the character ethic, which is return to like underlying principles, truth, honor, integrity, justice, things that are biblical, right? That don't go away, and they don't go away for a reason. Yep. And for some reason, we've abandoned, all the great thinkers. Like people don't read, the great philosophers, the great theologians, now they're reading like tips and tricks and hacky crap. Like, oh, if you shake somebody's hand overhand, you establish dominance, and I want to set that stuff on fire. Not the books. I didn't just say I'm burning books, but like the ideas, the concepts are so nutritionally void. And I think the 7 Habits, it just did a really good job of identifying that pervasive problem and then offering really specific, really tactical, tangible steps towards avoiding that. Dude,
I love it. I'm gonna have to go reread the book. I read it so long ago, man. I couldn't remember what you just said, so that means I need to reread it. But I have it on the bookshelf, so that'll go back in the queue. Man, thanks so much. This has been awesome. Definitely will link up the book and Solutions 8 in the show notes. If somebody wants to connect with you personally, where's the best place? Where are you most active on social?
YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel. I shoot a video every day. So, questions or comments or whatever via YouTube get answered pretty quickly. And then I'm on LinkedIn too, and, moderately accessible. Would love to connect. I'm the only Kasim Aslam I know of, so you can find me pretty easily.
Awesome, man. We will link it up in the show notes, man. Thanks so much. This has been great. Thanks for coming on and sharing with so much knowledge and so much integrity.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Joe. Thanks for having me.
See you, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in and show me the nuggets. If you've been enjoying the podcast and find our content helpful, please visit our Apple Podcast page, hit the subscribe button, and leave us a review. Joe and the whole team have been working hard to bring more value to the show. Your feedback will go a long way in helping us make the show better and reach a wider audience.